Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's live love up conversation. Whether you're joining me live or catching me on replay, I still appreciate you making the time. For those of you who are brand new to the show, well, let's get started.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun. Award-winning financial pro. Get ready. Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends. I'm Winnie, your host, an award winning financial pro, a Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member and contributor. And I'm so grateful to be coming here live with all of you. Thanks so much for making the time and joining us. We have so many things to talk about. If you didn't know already, 2025 is turning out to be completely crazy. But in terms of financial news, there's a lot that I want to share with you as well. Let's kind of kick it off and let you know where the market is doing. Hello, Joshua. I see you on YouTube Live. Thanks so much for making the time. Dow is currently up 494 points. Nasdaq's up 313/14 points. S&P 500 is up 77 points. So we do have some positivity today. And it feels like these days are rare. So I'm gonna just say, like, I think we should just celebrate today because there was a little bit of good news. And I will say that it actually felt like a little bit of normalcy in why the market is up today. Now, there was a lot of news that came out, but the thing that I want to put on your radar first and foremost is that the Federal Reserve actually made an announcement. This is being reported by CNBC, by several of my friends there. So currently, the Fed has said that, well, currently, no rate changes for now. The Federal Reserve is keeping interest rates at 4.25% to 4.5%, meaning no immediate relief now on mortgages, loans, credit card debt, credit card interest rates, mortgages, things like that. However, and this is key, and I think this is why you're seeing some green today, is that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell did say, though, that we can expect 2 rate cuts this year. The Fed is still planning to lower rates later in 2025, but of course, the timing isn't quite certain. Now, prices are expected to rise 2.8% this year, slightly higher than previously expected. But right now, the Fed expects the economy to grow just 1.7%. You know it, down from earlier forecasts. Now, new trade policies could raise prices on everyday goods. Not that that hasn't already happened. And we're going to get to that because if you've been in the market, if you've been buying anything, you're probably seeing things costing a lot more. So hiring showed that in February that people weren't hiring as many people, and many people are now struggling to find full-time work. And we know a lot of Americans continue to be laid off or have already been laid off. Now, in addition to that, I want to share this story with you because I think it's really important for you to understand. I've been seeing a lot of talk on social media, even people that I'm talking to on a one-on-one basis, asking, Winnie, do you think we're going to go into a recession? Well, I thought I would share this bit of news with you. This is being shared on CNBC this week, talking about a college called UCLA, a very prominent university here in the United States. Well, they have forecasted a warning for all of us. This is being shared by Steve Leisman at CNBC, that this first ever recession watch, which comes from the UCLA Anderson forecast, Anderson is UCLA's business school, a very respected economic forecaster since 1952, has issued, unfortunately, a pretty dire first official recession warning due to the current Trump administration policies. Now, their experts cite tariffs, immigration restrictions, and federal workplace reductions as potential triggers for economic contraction. They said currently there isn't a recession yet, but all the signs are there. While current economic indicators don't confirm a current recession, consumer spending has slowed down, financial sector vulnerabilities have raised concerns, and the CNBC Fed survey now shows a 36% probability of a recession in the next year, which is up from 23%. Now, it's not just like your typical inflation and things like that. Immigration plays a role in this too. So, immigration policies can create labor shortages, while federal spending cuts could also reduce employment for government workers and contractors. So, this forecast is warning that a stagfl- stagflationary recession, which is a mix of stagnation and inflation, could actually come about, making a recovery for here in the United States much more difficult. And in fact, because of the Trump administration's stance, officials acknowledge that economic risks, calling them part of this transition period, with the Commerce Secretary saying that recession would be worth it for long term gains. They are saying, well, recession is not here yet, but it could come, and they expect it to come because of the things that are being introduced now that we've been experiencing the last few weeks. Now, that being said, I wanted to jump in here and tell you and clarify what a recession is, because I think a lot of people are still confused about what makes for a recession. Well, in the United States, recessions are actually formally recognized by the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER. I guess MBER, right? Specifically, it's Business Cycle Dating Committee. Now, here are some of the key things that need to occur for a recession to be named. First, GDP here in the United States, which is negative, needs to have a shrinking economy or negative GDP growth, has to happen in multiple quarters. Next thing is employment. Rising unemployment rates and fewer job openings also is an indication of recession. And then industrial production, when we have declining output in manufacturing, mining, and utilities. And here's a big one that all of you contribute to, and this is consumer spending. Decrease household purchases, which drive most of the US economy. Well, if that goes down, then we're definitely closer to a recession. And then when it comes to real income, so falling after adjusting for things like inflation, meaning that you and I have less purchasing power, that is also a clear sign of recession. And then retail and business sales, slower consumer and business spending, that's where it's at. It's the 2-quarter rule. So many people use the 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. This is a rule of sort of a simple recession definition. So just to give you an idea, we're not quite that there yet, but something to pay attention to. But if you've noticed, I've certainly talked about recession more on this show than I have in a very long time. And if you're following financial news, you're seeing the articles come out much more frequently on the topic of recession as well. Now, to give you the idea of the last recessions that we've had, one of them you probably can guess, but one of them, of course, the COVID-19 recession, it was short, but it was severe. And it was between February and April of 2020. So it's just a few months. But the Great Recession, that occurred in 2008. And that lasted from December 2007 all the way to June of 2009 due to the financial crisis. So right now, we are on full on economic watch of recession watch, officially recession watch. So we're seeing the stock markets have already entered correction territory. Of course, that's not good, right? Trade tensions, we're seeing a lot of issues with trade. Different countries aren't happy with us. We're not happy with them either. Consumer spending currently is holding steady. 70% of the US economy, is determined by consumer spending. So if you and I start to spend less for things like back to school shopping, around the holidays, and everything in between, well, that could also be an economic warning sign as well. Now, the current Census Bureau data suggests that spending currently is remaining stable. Now, of course, it's probably not even. There's certain people that probably can spend a little bit more and less, but that's probably typically how it is all year long as well. But the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index has dropped over 10% this month, signaling growing unease. And so a lot of indications that things aren't going well in the economy. So if a recession occurs, at least you kind of know what that means, most importantly. But also, the reason I want to share this with you is with this knowledge, I want you to think about ways that you can kind of plan ahead, right? Make sure that your emergency fund is funded. If it hasn't been funded yet, start working on that. Make sure your spending's in check. Focus on needs versus wants. Right now, unfortunately, this isn't a great time to be buying stuff that you really, really want these days, unfortunately. But President Trump has said that a recession would be worth it. But economists, of course, are very skeptical. Now, this is being shared by the New York Times. So Trump is doing a big gamble with tariffs. Is a recession worth it? Well, President Trump has acknowledged that there are recession risks, but unlike most presidents, Trump and his team admit that a recession could happen under his policies, arguing that it might be a necessary transition for long-term economic gains. Now, whether that is true or not is really up to you for you to decide. Of course, we'll share a lot of data from a lot of analysts and professionals in the space, but at the end, you have to make the decision. The administration's tariffs of course, they said they're aimed at boosting U.S. manufacturing, aimed at instead of like raising prices on goods and materials, they said this actually, well, experts are saying and economists are saying that this could actually worsen inflation and hurt consumers. Now, that being said, it would be great to think that US manufacturing could speed up and be that quick, so quickly that manufacturing would increase significantly here in the United States. A lot of that manufacturing, as we know, occurs in foreign countries, including China and India and many other countries. And it'd be nice to think that it could all come to the United States that quickly and that Americans would just jump in and get that done and we would recover. But to be honest, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense because we know that these things take time, right? People need to be trained, buildings need to be built, resources need to be allocated, and um, and a lot of raw materials may or may not be created or manufactured or available here in the United States. And we do depend on the global market for a lot of things that we use. Well, business and consumer confidence has also been dropping. Market uncertainty, driven by, of course, trade policies and still the shifts in government spending, Doge, is making a lot of people nervous as well, has led to plummeting confidence and falling stock prices, which, if you've been good about saving for things like retirement and your kids' education, and you've done your part all these years, you might feel a little sing because it doesn't look as good as you used to, and you might be wondering if it's worth it. And so only you can decide on that. But economists are criticizing the current administration's approach. They are saying that short term pain can actually lead to long term economic benefits, but that they argue that the Trump administration's broad tariffs may actually cause more lasting harm than the good that it would create. So while the administration calls for reduced dependence on government spending, its budget plans, including tax cuts, are expected to increase, not decrease, the deficit. So that being said, it's going to really seem, well, based on these reports, it's expected to have the biggest impact on lower income Americans. The hardest hit by these policies may be low and middle income families facing higher prices, gas prices, food prices, housing prices, fewer government benefits on top of that, and potential job losses in a downturn. And let's not forget that AI is knocking on our door too, and a lot of people are already worried about their job security due to AI. So this is just on top of that. So now they're saying that the long-term effects of a recession, that if a downturn does occur, it could have lasting consequences, particularly for workers who lose their jobs or graduate into a weak economy and can't find work, setting back those career prospects for years to come. But that being said, let's transition. I want to talk now about some exciting news. I'm using the word egg in there, but of course you probably didn't hear it. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about some egg news. Now, we've talked about this already, right? We know that egg prices have gone up considerably. Fortune reported egg prices have soared 60% here in the United States as inflation and tariffs spike. And because of the avian flu and everything else, it's made a lot of chickens very sick. Over 160 million birds have been culled due to the avian flu, with 30 million lost in the month of January alone. So, a lot of people paying a lot more for eggs. But that being said, believe it or not, this is not a global issue because in Canada, which is just not that far from us, well, they don't really have an egg issue. In fact, they have plenty of eggs. So you might be wondering why Canada has plenty of eggs. I thought I'd share this with you. It was a report that came out from NPR. Well, NPR has reported that the avian flu outbreaks have wiped out, of course, millions of eggs here in the United States. But Canada's egg supply remains just completely stable. And despite also facing the avian flu in Canada, Canada hasn't experienced shortages. Stores have plenty of egg varieties at stable prices. In fact, the reason that is because Canadian egg farms in general are smaller, with around 25,000 hens per egg compared to US farms that often house over a million birds or chickens. Smaller farms, they say, limit the impact of outbreaks. Of course, Canada's colder climate and tightly sealed barns have also kept the flu virus out, while fewer free range chickens reduce infection risk. So, here in the United States, the industry is very much reliant on massive farms for efficiency means that an outbreak at one facility can literally wipe out a significant portion of the egg supply. In Canada's system, they ensure that stable prices and they protect small farms. And the government supply management in Canada is very active, reducing the need for aggressive scaling that makes US farms much more vulnerable. In fact, the USDA is studying currently, thank goodness, Canada's approach and may consider increasing egg imports to stabilize prices and supply. In fact, believe it or not, you probably heard about some of the tariffs and issues occurring with some of our European countries. Well, US has now requested egg imports from Denmark amid rising prices. This is also being reported. The US Department of Agriculture has asked Denmark and other European nations about exporting eggs to help ease supply shortages. In fact, Trump administration's economic pressure on Denmark comes with the request, comes as President Trump imposes new tariffs on these European countries, but they still also are trying to demand that Denmark at some point hand over Greenland. So I'm not sure that they're going to be so keen on sending us eggs at fair prices. So I'm wondering if that actually could be more expensive. But nonetheless, the Trump administration is hoping that Denmark does send over some eggs, and Denmark probably, I'm guessing, isn't that crazy about it, given that they've been asked also to be handing over Greenland. But this, of course, is being reported by the South China Morning Post and Reuters. So, believe I don't know. I'm just sharing the news with you, but I think it's very interesting. That being said, I also wanted to share another report that came out that I thought was pretty cool. This is by Food Bev Media and talking about how in China, they're actually going to be building this huge cage-free egg farm to meet rising demand and also to make sure that their egg production is sustainable. In fact, a company called Sun Daily is expanding their cage-free egg production. This is actually China's second largest egg producer, Sun Daily, and they're constructing the nation's largest single-site cage-free egg farm in the Sichuan province area, they said. And the farm is going to start with 300,000 cage-free hens, and they plan to scale that over to over a million over the next 3 to 5 years. And they're going to produce shell eggs, liquid eggs, powder eggs, I guess all types of different eggs. But they are saying that consumer demand is driving this shift, and they are very much aware of animal welfare and ethical food sourcing. So the consumers and businesses are leaning towards cage-free eggs there as well. They said this will be better for welfare, higher quality eggs, and cage-free environments allow their chickens to roam, and that this will reduce chicken stress and will improve egg quality because the chickens are less stressed, according to many studies. In fact, research from the European Food Safety Authority indicates that cage free farms have significantly lowered salmonella contamination rates as well. Now, if you thought that this was just something happening in China, well, you're mistaken because remember, we are a global economy, which also means that Sun Daily doesn't just supply eggs to the people in China, they also are a major supplier for companies here in the United States, like Walmart and Sam's Club and many other companies, aligning sort of with the global trend favoring ethical and sustainable sourcing. Now, this is, of course, a movement in China with 60% of Chinese consumers now preferring eggs that are cage free. And so now Sun Daily is making a big investment to make sure they're the leader in the evolving food market. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I thought I would want to share that with you. Now, there's more though. I want to talk about what's happening back here in the United States. So come back to the United States for a moment and let's talk about the bird flu on farms, right? And we want to talk about what the officials here in the United States are going to be doing. This is reporting from the New York Times. The good thing is they do have a plan. Okay. So RFK Jr. Has a plan. And this is being reported from the New York Times. And so Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has suggested allowing bird flu to spread in poultry farms to identify naturally immune birds. Now, this is a concept that he feels that will produce those who are able to survive bird flu. He feels will be stronger, and this will create natural immunity in birds and chickens. Right now, that being said, there are many veterinarians and health experts that say this approach is not only inhumane to chickens, but also very dangerous and actually could worsen current outbreaks, increasing the risk because of mutations of H5N1, which is the avian flu. Now, of course, uh, people are saying, or experts are reporting, that they feel that there could be massive economic and health risks. Letting a virus run through chicken flocks would not only devastate the poultry industry here in the United States, but that it could also pose threats to employees, farm workers, and also other animals that are on farms or just in general. Because they say mutation in human risk concerns are big because every infected chicken or bird gives a virus another chance to mutate, which could potentially increase its ability to spread among humans as well. And they're saying culling of chickens and biosecurity. Well, farmers typically do cull infected chickens and flocks to prevent the spread of avian flu, H5N1. But efforts underway are to strengthen farm biosecurity. That would be best. And they're saying there's no proven immunity in poultry. And in fact, veterinarians and experts are arguing that chickens and turkeys here in the United States actually lack the genetic diversity to develop resistance. They said a lot of chickens, because there's so many of them, that the chickens are almost like the same chicken over and over again, the turkey are over and over again. And so there's not a lot of genetic diversity to develop resistance to the avian flu, which they say makes this plan scientifically flawed. So hopefully, they can come up with a new plan or think of other options or alternatives. But I wanted to share that with you as well. Now let's continue because I want to talk to you about what's happening in Europe and here in the United States as well. This is being reported on by Fast Company. Now, many countries, in addition to this, I think many of you know the phenomenon of Taylor Swift and Beyonce and how, that they'll go to different countries and they'll do their concerts and they'll actually boost cities and states and countries' economy because they go into these different places and people go see the concerts. They actually, talents actually increase the economy at the different places. Well, one of the big things is because of tourism. People travel to a place, they book a hotel, they go and see concerts. Well, tourism is a big factor in many parts of the world in boosting economy. And here in the United States, we are no different. I mean, you see places like, like the Statue of Liberty actually, brings a lot of tourists to New York City, Disneyland and Disney World in Florida and California, right? The Grand Canyon. Well, tourism does bring a lot of provides a lot of jobs and it brings a lot of money to different cities and communities. Well, US tourism now is at risk because, well, foreign travelers don't feel really comfortable coming. This is being reported by Fast Company. In fact, reports have shown that some European travelers, they're saying, have been detained or even deported while visiting the US, raising concerns about our stricter immigration policies here in the US. In fact, there was a recent study by Tourism Economics. They revised their 2025 US travel forecast from an 8.8% increase to a 5.1% increase. Now, you might say, well, that's only around 3%. How much is that? Well, actually, that's quite a bit. It's about an $18.8 billion economic loss here in the United States. Over $18 billion that we would potentially lose because less people want to travel and visit the United States. And also, there's concerns about visa uncertainty. Because of our stricter visa scrutiny and longer processing times, this is happening to discourage foreign travelers from coming to the United States, which impacts hotel, tourism of all, travel, hospitality industries, restaurants, and so many other things. And there have been a lot of high profile cases. Recent detentions, including a German tattoo artist, a German hiker, a Canadian entrepreneur, a British tourist, all facing unexpected immigration headache and hurdles and very scary, stressful times, um, even though they had valid travel documents and documentation. They were ready. They were supposed to be okay, and it didn't go okay. So these cases are hitting the news, and so people don't feel comfortable coming to the United States. The latest data shows a 2.4% drop in foreign travelers compared to last year already, with notable declines from Africa, Asia, and Central America. And let's be honest, a lot of people who travel to the United States spend money in the United States because we are known as having, a lot of diversity, a lot of great weather, a lot of cool sites, and a lot of things that people want to buy. But that being said, Canadian travel, Canada's like our neighbor. Canadian travel to the United States has completely dropped from the sky. A 23% drop in return trips, likely due to the new US tariffs on Canada. People are not happy. Stricter immigration policies may also impact the hospitality industry because not only are we talking about tourism, but also they rely heavily on immigrant workers with work visas. So experts are warning that even without an official travel ban, the current climate could deter tourists and businesses from engaging with the US economy. We will essentially be more of a island, right? I guess we have Hawaiian Islands and now there's a US island. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully things will get better because I do know if that does occur, then a lot of small businesses especially will suffer. Now, speaking of other news, I want to share this one. This was another eye-opening one, and hopefully you find that to be the case. This is being reported by Inside EVs. Okay, so you many of you know about what's been happening with Tesla and that. I'm not going to go into detail on that, but as someone who drives a Tesla, one of the things that I love about the car is it's a wonderful car. I've had it for a very, very long time. I was one of the early adopters of buying an electric vehicle, so my car is old. But that being said, one of the pain points is there was one time my family and I, we actually, when we first got the car, we were in Southern California, we decided to do a road trip to Las Vegas because brand new car, electricity, let's go. Let me tell you, it was quite painful because we had to stop so many times to charge the vehicle. Well, now there's a company called BYD, a Chinese automaker, EV automaker. They have just unveiled a 5-minute charging technology. That is unbelievable. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. BYD introduced ultra fast 1,000 kilowatt DC charging, which will allow EVs to gain 250 miles of range in like 5 minutes. That's huge. So, of course, this does create more challenge for the other EV manufacturers as BYD advances. Other EV companies have aging vehicles and lineup, like my car, right? Delays in affordable EV, and of course, let's not forget controversial political moves by certain EV leaders. Um, but many companies are falling behind, including Audi, Alfa Romeo, did I say that right? Hope I did. Are actually reconsidering their all electric plans, citing slower EV adoption and even infrastructure limitations. But UN's investors are, of course, really paying attention to this. And those who are looking to buy a new vehicle, especially, are watching this very, very closely, especially. Since BYD also offers lower cost models of electric vehicles. And I think we can all agree if we can stay on the road, be on the road and not be, not have to stop constantly and wait. Sometimes, like on a road trip to Las Vegas, sometimes we be sitting there for nearly an hour charging the vehicle. Most of the times closer to about 30 minutes. But let's be honest, compared to filling up at the pump, right, with gas, that feels like a really long time. And yes, it added a lot of extra time to our trip. So yes, if we were able to, charge 5 minutes, get back on the road, I can see a lot more people adopting electric vehicles as well. So that being said, let us continue. I also want to talk about what's happening with Tesla. Now, you've probably seen some of this on social media, maybe on television, about some of the targeted attacks on Tesla vehicles. Now, the FBI is now investigating these attacks as domestic terrorism. This is being reported by CNN. In fact, in Las Vegas, a suspect was actually dressed in all black and set fires to multiple Tesla vehicles at a repair facility, leaving words like resist. Actually, he actually spray painted, he or she, I'm not sure. Somebody spray painted this on the building, in fact. But the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is now investigating the attack as a potential act of domestic terrorism. Yes, you remember right. The word domestic terrorism, the last time it was used was about January 6th, and now we're using it about this as well. So, similar Tesla related attacks have occurred in many, many places, and different station fires have occurred in places such as Boston, even New York City, and even in places like Colorado. And I will say that I've talked to many Tesla drivers myself, and it seems like people are very much concerned about the safety of themselves and their cars as well. And in fact, I've been seeing more people have these stickers on their cars saying that, my car is an old car. I bought this a long time ago. I don't have one yet. I'm like, I don't really want to put one on. I'm hoping I don't have to. But nonetheless, as a Tesla driver, this is concerning. And the U.S. Attorney General Pamela Bondi says very strongly that she intends to prosecute perpetrators, warning that authorities are also tracking potential people who are also financing these sort of attacks as well. So hopefully this doesn't happen. And for those of you who are watching, I hope that you don't do this. I mean, most of these cars are owned by individuals and they bought them because of whatever reason they like the car, they wanted to help the environment, they like electric vehicles in general. So they're don't destroy property. I think that's a bad idea. I just want to put that out there. But nonetheless, that's what's happening. And in fact, this is certainly a brand crisis for Tesla. We know that Elon Musk's politics are driving away potential buyers. In fact, Tesla's having something what they call a vibe shift. This is being reported by Bloomberg and Business Week. At one time, it was like one time, many progressive electric vehicle buyers, well, they love Tesla and they bought a lot of Tesla, and Tesla started had a big factory here in California, but now they're struggling because of Elon Musk's aligning the brand with very polarizing politics, depending on which side you are. You may love it, you may hate it. But that being said, sales in Europe have dropped 45%, 70% in Australia, 49% in China in 2025, signaling globally they're not too happy with this, and decline in demand for sure. And a lot of Tesla owners now are also distancing themselves from the brand. Like I mentioned, some people have been putting stickers on their vehicles throughout the United States, clarifying that they bought their car before Elon's political shift. In fact, so that's what's happening. But that being said, um, President Trump and the White House has made an appearance, hoping to promote Tesla vehicles to Republican voters and other people and others trying sort of like as a last ditch effort to boost sales. But that being said, the thing that they found is that it didn't really help because they're saying that a lot of conservative or Republicans actually, car buyers actually preferred gas um, powered vehicles. So now that's sort of what's happening. Now, that being said, luckily, I guess Elon is diversified. I don't need to diversified. And if you saw recently, he brought the astronauts back in his SpaceX, and that was awesome. That was really cool. But that being said, Elon Musk also, of course, owns Starlink. And did you know? I want to make sure this is on your radar. And see, Sadiq, you on YouTube Live, so this is probably something that will interest you. Elon has also now expanded Starlink's access to the White House complex. This is true. The New York Times is reporting this, so I'm assuming it's true. New York Times is reporting that Starlink has installed at the White House um, satellite internet service, and they're now operating across the White House complex, aimed at what they called improving connectivity. Now, the Trump administration says that Starlink was donated; it was a gift. So they didn't have to pay for it. But experts are questioning the legality of such a gift and the potential conflicts of interest. Now, as both a major Trump donor and an unpaid White House advisor, Elon's business dealings with the government, of course, are raising a lot of eyebrows. In fact, there have been some security issues and Secret Service involvement. In fact, a Musk affiliated engineer triggered an alarm when they were inspecting the installation site, leading to, of course, more questions about security risks. And of course, there's a question of encryption and the necessity of this because critics are arguing that the White House already had really reliable internet and that Starlink's installation could actually introduce cybersecurity vulnerabilities. The service has been installed at the General Services Administration and it's been approved for government mobile devices as well. Now, Elon's been criticized um, before, but in this case, Elon is criticizing the government's technology, saying that the government needs this tech upgrade. They're saying that the White House systems have been outdated and needs better technology, and he's reporting working on the digital infrastructure improvements as well. So I'll let you again be the judge of what you think about that, but I want to make sure that that was on your radar as well. And with that, there's a whole bunch more stuff, but that's enough for today, I think. I think we can agree with that because the market's about to close. And I want to give you an update on actually, you know what? I'm going to give you one more story because I see Sadiq here, and I think this is a good one for you all to know about. Not only for you to know, but also your loved ones. This is really important. This was reported by Fortune. Okay, there's been a change. You probably heard that the Trump administration has been making a lot of changes to different government entities. Social Security is a big one. Now, this is huge. This is being reported this week by Fortune, amongst many other financial publications. The new Social Security is they're proposing a new Social Security verification rule. So, what is this? The Trump administration is considering a policy that it would actually require many people, many of you, and me maybe, Social Security applicants to verify their identity online or in person at field offices. Now, they're saying that thousands of people could be affected weekly. An estimated 75 to 85,000 people per week may then need to visit Social Security field offices, potentially leading to longer wait times and accessibility issues. Do you think that'll lead to longer wait times? I think so, especially since they're closing a lot of offices. And as a child of a senior citizen, I can tell you for a fact that my mom would need a lot of help verifying her identity online, and she would probably default to wanting to go in person, just like she needs to go to the DMV and everything. So this is creating a lot of concerns for the elderly and disabled, because older and disabled Americans who already struggle with online verification or travel could then face significant challenges under this new rule. And also, fewer field offices available. More than 40 out of the 1,200 only 1,200 Social Security offices are expected to close, further limiting access to in-person services. Now, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, plans to cut 7,000 Social Security employees, which I'm guessing isn't going to help with service delays of Social Security applicants. In fact, the White House argues that the change is going to help prevent fraud, which it probably would, right? If there's a lot of people um, having to make their way to verify their identity, despite a report actually showing that improper payments accounted for less than 1% of Social Security disbursements from 2015 to 2022. So, not that much um, errors that they're reporting. And AI integration for phone services, they're saying. Social Security is also exploring AI based systems to streamline customer service. But again, I ask you, for those of you who have grandparents or senior citizen parents, how many of you think that your family members would embrace and enjoy and be able to successfully use this AI based system, streamlining the customer service that they experience? For me, I'm a little not convinced on that. But I would love to be wrong in that. I would love to see AI be so conducive and easy for my senior citizen parent and family members to use. But concerns remain, of course, with accessibility, effectiveness. And so, yeah, so what that really means is this. I want to kind of put this in context. So let's say you're already on Social Security, right? Or your family is already on Social Security. What that does mean is this. Does that mean for you, you're good to go? No, it actually doesn't mean. That means that if you need to make a change to your bank account, all right, maybe your Social Security is going into one bank, but you like that bank anymore, or that bank closes in your neighborhood, so you need to transfer to a different bank. If you need to update your direct deposit or banking details, you're no longer be able to do so over the phone. You're probably going to have to go in person. That also means that there's going to be longer wait times at the field office. So if you need in-person services, office closures, staff reductions would probably cause significant delays. Hopefully, they have a reservation system, which I know they have now. Hopefully, it's even more efficient. And hopefully, you're very close to a Social Security office and it's an easy drive for you. And we know a lot of senior citizens don't like to take the freeway. So maybe it's like, as convenient as the post office. I don't know. But there's even words that world is changing as well. And then potentially AI managed customer service, right? So right now, no benefit cuts are expected. Hopefully, the administration insists they're not going to be cutting Social Security payments, but they're making it much more strict in verifying, and this could actually lead to disruptions for some recipients. And I can only imagine it would cause some people to delay receiving their Social Security as well. Now, what does that mean for new applicants? Because I know many of you watching are younger. What this means is when you are ready to start your Social Security, you'll need to do online identity verification. This is going to be required. First-time applicants will need to verify their identity using an online system before even applying over the phone. Okay. And then, of course, if it doesn't work for whatever reason, you're going to be able to, you're not going to be able to go online. You're going to have to go into an office and get that sorted out. Now, there's going to be more bureaucratic hurdles for disability benefits. Disabled individuals who often struggle with mobility, internet access, they might, if you become disabled, you might also have to go in if you can't use the online system. So with fewer Social Security workers, basically for most people, that's just going to be more of a wait there. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think this is something they should think a little deeper in? You think it's going to be sustainable? Do you feel like AI can keep up with this in the short term? Like, do you think it's going to be ready, and or is this something that you think will be pushed off later and we have more time with this? Well, only you will know, but I'll let you decide on that. And let's take a look at the market, which has closed 5 minutes ago. The Dow is currently closed up 383 points, so up 383 for the day. Nasdaq closed up 246, and the S&P 500 closed up 60, which is great. It's been a nice green day, I guess, thanks to some of the news that came out today. And thank you, most importantly, for being here with me and being a part of today's Level Up Live. It's wonderful to be spending this Wednesday afternoon with you. Do me a favor, make sure you hit that like and subscribe to stay updated on all the new latest updates. I do try to come live at least one time a week. Trying to do it more often. It just depends on the schedule. It's tax season. We've got a lot of things keeping us quite busy. But to catch full past episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, you can check out Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and of course, previous episodes on NASDAQ. And when sharing the episode online, make sure to tag at Winnie Sun so I can see you doing so. And I want to say there's so many people that I owe a shout out to, and I will definitely get to that and hopefully that very, very soon. But if if you want to share the show online, tell somebody about it, because this way we can get you in front of news and then you can be on with your day and relax. But hopefully you have a great rest of your week. And if I don't talk to you before that, have a beautiful weekend as well. With that, I'll see you very soon. Take care and be well. Bye-bye now.